be continued, whether the bosoms of our northern freemen shall be made the receptacles of its spoils, and their hearts the abettors of its abominations. Slave farms quickly spread across the American South, concentrating in the coastal regions of South Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia, as well as the fertile lands along the Mississippi River in Louisiana and Mississippi. The 1860 United States Census recorded a slave population of nearly 4 million, with the majority living and working on the estimated 46,200 plantations throughout the South. In Louisiana, the number of slaves grew from around 4,000 in 1720 to over 331,000 by 1860, with many working on the state's infamous sugarcane plantations. The Whitney Plantation in Wallace, Louisiana, which is now a museum dedicated to the history of slavery, serves as a stark reminder of the brutality and scale of the slave trade. As the former slave and abolitionist Henry Bibb wrote in his 1849 autobiography, "Slavery is a system of inhumanity that is founded in blood, cherished in blood, and can only be abolished in blood." Life on these slave farms was brutal and dehumanizing. Slaves were subjected to backbreaking labor from sunrise to sunset, with little rest and often under the threat of physical punishment. Frederick Douglass, a former slave who became a prominent abolitionist, described the conditions on a plantation in his 1845 autobiography, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. The slaves selected to go to the Great House Farm for the monthly allowance for themselves and their fellow slaves were peculiarly enthusiastic. While on their way, they would make the dense old woods for miles around reverberate with their wild songs, revealing at once the highest joy and the deepest sadness. Douglass's vivid account of the slaves' songs highlights the complex emotions they experienced, a bittersweet mix of joy and sorrow that characterized their daily lives. Another former slave, Harriet Jacobs, who escaped to freedom in the North, described the psychological toll of slavery in her 1861 autobiography, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. "Slavery is terrible for men, but it is far more terrible for women. Superadded to the burden common to all, they have wrongs and sufferings and mortifications peculiarly their own." The crops cultivated on these farms varied by region, but the most common were cotton, tobacco, and sugarcane. By 1860, the South was producing 75% of the world's cotton, with the majority grown and harvested by slaves. Tobacco, which had been a staple crop since the colonial era, also relied heavily on slave labor. On Louisiana's sugarcane plantations, slaves endured particularly harsh conditions, working in extreme heat and humidity to cultivate and process the crop. In 1853, Solomon Northup,